There are two types of people who would have clicked this video. The first is currently working a 9 to 5. They spend most of their time looking at the clock with a pit in their stomach, thinking about whether this is what their life will look like for the next 40 years. The second has already escaped that life, but something isn't clicking for them. They're freelancing, but the clients are random, their income is inconsistent, and the freedom that they thought they would experience through freelancing doesn't really feel like freedom. Whichever one sounds like you, this masterclass is going to change that for you. 4 years ago, I started freelancing with no connection, no degree or certificate in the field that I freelance in, and absolutely no corporate experience. Within 18 months, I built a multi-six-figure freelance business, and I've gone on to help others have their first $4,000 month, $8,000 month, $11,000 month from freelancing alone. And today I am giving you the complete system. Everything that I wish I had when I first started, step by step. I'm gonna break things down into 5 parts. Foundation, what you do, who you do it for, and why it matters. Clients, where to find them and how to get booked fast. Pricing, how to charge your worth as a freelancer and how to actually get paid. Workflow, how to optimize your time and deliver your services to your client without experiencing burnout. And last but definitely not least, longevity, how to turn this into something that lasts and that you feel comfortable doing no matter where the world's at. And to make this super actionable for you, I built a free Notion board to go along with this video. It has everything from notes, links, screenshots if you're a more visual person. So I highly recommend clicking the first link in the description of this video and following along as you watch. That way, literally by the end of this video, you will have your offer, your pricing, your first client plan, and not just a bunch of ideas in your head. Quickly, before we get started, if you're new here, my name is Danae. I post videos every week on this channel in relation to ambition, discipline, freelancing, and money. So if this video teaches you anything, definitely like and subscribe. And after this, you can check out some of my playlists, which will likely motivate you on your freelancing or life journey in general. Let's start with part 1. Most people freelance backwards. They get really stressed about clients and making money before they think about the why. But the why is extremely important. It is quite literally what separates the average freelancer from the top 1% freelancer who's making loads of money to the point where it seems kind of sketchy or illegal. The difference between these two freelancers is that the top 1% freelancer understands that freelancing in a way that makes you good money isn't about selling your skill. It's about solving problems in a way that's selling their skills and not thinking about how can I solve big problems that make big money. This was a life-changing realization for me and allowed me to get out of plateau that I had for quite a few months. I've been able to scale much faster if I had really taken this in from the very beginning. Breaking down pricing and setting your rates later on in this video, but what I get across right now is that freelancing in a way that makes you money is not about the time or the hours you spend working on a project. It's about the outcome and the value that you're bringing to your clients. In caveman terms, big problem solved, big money to your bank account. Small problem solved, small money to your bank account. And to really drive this point in even further, think about it like this. McDonald's was one of the few jobs that I've ever worked because I never worked a corporate job. And at McDonald's, I was a cashier. The cashier or the person flipping burgers is a small problem for the company. You could find any average person off the street and get them working at McDonald's and achieving the same results. But let's imagine now the person that's redesigning McDonald's drive-thru. They obviously care about getting the most amount of people food in the fastest way possible. So if that person can redesign the drive-thru in a way that makes each car spend an extra dollar or get through the drive-thru a little bit faster so they can milk the most amount of money from their customers, that's millions in extra revenue. And because they can explicitly measure that impact, it's very clear to see the end result. That person gets paid way more valuable to the business. This is their specialty, designing fast food restaurants, kitchens, and storage rooms in a way that allow people to move more efficiently. They'll consistently get more work and more pay. The bigger and more measurable the problem you solve, the more valuable you become. You must follow this principle as a freelancer. You think about your freelancing journey in the same way. Likely, if you're already freelancing and struggling, it's because you're not thinking about things in this way. So before anything, you must think about how the skill that you have is solving problems for your clients, and then continue to go down that rabbit hole to get closer to the money. In the freelancing world, your title doesn't really matter. What matters is, can you do the thing? And the thing is best when it's attached to an outcome like I just described. The hardest pill to swallow, especially for creatives in the freelancing space, is that more money doesn't necessarily come from how passionate you are about the thing. It actually comes from results. But there are ways where you can pair your passion, your art, and your skills to results. And that's why this is the most important part. How do you get closer to the money? Glad you asked. Let's get into it. So there's probably two people watching this. You don't really know if you have a skill to offer, and then you do have a skill. I'm going to cover both. If you don't have a skill yet, or you don't think you have a skill that you can freelance, start by writing down some of the hard skills and soft skills that you personally have. Maybe you currently work a 9 to 5, or you went to university for a specific thing. Maybe you really liked writing essays, or you worked as a camp counselor. Whatever hard skills you've built up at some point throughout your life, write those hard skills down. You can even write them down to chat and say, based on all these skills that I have, any of them related to or could be stacked onto something else to solve a problem that businesses already spend money on. That's how you want to think about it. So as an example, I went to school for journalism and humanities. So at a baseline, I was good at writing. In journalism school, we were writing articles. And then I had a little bit of knowledge of this thing called copywriting, which is essentially for the purpose of converting people. So getting people to take an action, whether it was to sign up to a newsletter, buy something, subscribe, whatever the case is. So I took my skill of writing, paired it with understanding of direct response marketing, because understanding direct response marketing is how you write. Because if you understand direct response marketing, you can write good copy that gets people to take action. I started right before ChatGPT and AI tools existed. I would just Google these kind of things, and I saw that businesses were already spending money on copywriters. In fact, copywriting was a actual 9 to 5 that I could also apply, was actually a corporate job as well that I could apply for. So I knew that there was a need for it. I didn't get validation or context from anyone in the market. I just kind of said, okay, seems like I could figure this out. Went on YouTube, typed in how to write copy, watched the whole first page of videos about copywriting, and then went on Upwork and called myself a copywriter. I'll get into that in a bit, but the point of that story is to say that you want to think about the baseline skills you already have. Use Google or an AI tool to figure out what kind of skills are adjacent to that or you might already have. Pick one that interests you, practice it, and don't disqualify yourself because you're new. In the freelancing world, nobody is going to tell you, okay, girl, you're ready. You have the certificate. You're good to go. You have to validate yourself. And the only way you'll get better is if you increase the stakes. So once you have a baseline understanding of copy, you feel like you're good, you've built up a portfolio, and actually you've got a client, that says a lot too. A little bit bad, but you'll learn as you get paid to do it, which is exactly what I did. When I look back at some of the first projects I did on Upwork, I cringe so hard, but it was in those times that I was learning and building up the muscle to get even better. Also have an in-depth video on the highest paying freelancing niches that you can get into. In my opinion, especially in the marketing realm, I'll put that on the screen here and will also be in my freelancing playlist. Web copy for a bit. I was working project to project, getting paid, but I realized that I wasn't close to the money. It was hard to get on retainer, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. And I realized that I was really replaceable. And then ChatGPT and AI started to boom. And I realized, okay, I could be even more replaceable. So how do I get closer to the money? This was literally my thought process and growth journey as a freelancer. So immediately I thought, okay, with a lot of these brands that I'm working with, they send emails, and the base of an email that converts people to purchase a product is good copy, along with design, but copy plays a big role. The subject line, the actual content in the email. So I thought, okay, if I learn email marketing, I can get closer to the money, because if they can clearly see my one email made them X amount of money, and that makes them a lot of money, they'll be happier, they'll see my value, I can get paid on retainer, and I can likely charge more. So I took my curiosity, put it into practice, and started offering email marketing services. And then from there, I was introduced to a whole other world of paid ad script writing, which again, the base of paid ads is copywriting, but with a strong understanding of direct response marketing and human behavior, which I was learning through copy and email. I then got even closer to the money. Why? Because while email has been tried and almost every business is still sending emails and making money from emails, a lot of businesses at this point in my journey were making a majority, and still are making a majority, of their revenue from paid ads. So I then learned the skill, positioned myself, got clients in that industry, and boom. You can see how I was curious. I thought about, okay, how do we get closer to the money with the skill I have? The base skill I have is copy. Continue to stack on adjacent skills that are relevant to solving a problem for a business owner. I save them time because they don't have the time to be writing ad scripts that convert, manage the process so they didn't have to coordinate with the other people that are part of the process of making these ads, but also made them loads of freaking money. At this point, I've generated over $4 million with paid ads for my clients, because of my understanding of copy and direct response marketing. So you already have a skill. You kind of know this is people get paid for this, social media management or video editing, or you're a stylist or you're an artist, you're a graphic designer in some sort of way. Cool. You have that skill, but how can you use that skill or position yourself in an industry that's going to pay you well because you're solving a really big problem? To do this, I recommend starting with research. Go on LinkedIn, go on Upwork or job boards, and read how clients describe the outcome of what they're looking for with this specific skill, because you will never succeed and make loads of money as a freelancer by going out saying, hey, I'm a graphic designer, I can make you a logo. Hey, I'm a video editor, let me edit your YouTube video. You're gonna plateau very fast and be burnt out. You need to think about, okay, what are the problems, let's say as a video editor, YouTubers are having? Maybe they're not getting as many leads. Maybe watch time is low. If you specialize in solving a problem that's going to then make them money, increase watch time means they make more money per video, which means more brand deals, more this and that. You can see how you'll be able to make more money from them. So it's not enough to have this baseline skill. And you'll waste a lot of time and energy in the early stages of your journey if you don't differentiate yourself fast. So you do this research and you move that skill as close to the money as possible. Ask yourself, how can I take what I know and help a business or a content creator or an influencer or whatever get more business from this? More leads, more sales, longer retention, clients stay longer. How can I position myself? And sometimes you'll do research and you'll figure it out quickly. Other times you just got to get your hands dirty. So maybe you start like me, where you're just like, you know what? I know copy. I'm going to offer copy. And then you stay curious. You see how the inner workings of the business work. You see who they're paying. You see who are in the Slack channels. You stay curious and you take your observations and then actually take action on them. That's how I move forward in this space with really little to no help. I didn't invest in my first mentor, which wasn't specific to freelancing, was actually specific to sales, until I was making $6,000 a month. So I went from $0 to $6,000 simply by using YouTube and being really, really curious about these things. Now I may be able to just go backwards and share what was actually happening during that period. So I've mentioned a few of these already. If you're a designer, you could work in paid ads and designing graphics that actually get sales, or you can position yourself in the fashion e-com space and connect with suppliers and to help speed up the process between brands and suppliers across the globe. If you're a VA, you can become a VA operations person who ties the work that they're doing not to tasks, but to tracking leads, client success, revenue metrics. As I say at the start, stay open-minded. You can do your research. If you have a clear understanding, you can go all in, but I would still say stay open, because even when I figured this out and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I still pivoted many times in many different niches. When I was copywriting, I found my space in the kind of beauty, wellness, e-com space, but that wasn't where I started, and have loads of experience under my belt, which is important because it showed me what I like and what I don't like. And knowing what you don't like can help you get closer to what you do like and do want and can see yourself doing. And you're going to learn so much the more experience you have with clients. Just from working in an agency setting or working with a brand, I learn about the industry as a whole, which then further pushed me into new industries, new worlds, new understanding of what I can offer and do. So don't feel like whatever you start with, you're tied to that forever, but do spend the time to think about this in the beginning, unless you want to be getting paid pennies. Alrighty, let's move on to clients. So once you know what you do and who you do it for, you officially have something to sell. Yay. It doesn't need to be super clear or extravagant. It just needs to be enough for your prospect, your potential client, to say, I need that, I need you, let's get to work. But how do you find those people? The big, big, big question. Where do you find clients? There are 3 main ways to get clients, and I'm going to go through all of them right now. Number 1, you have inbound. This means clients come to you. How would a client come to you? That could be through content you post on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. It could be through word of mouth, through family, friends, acquaintances, visibility of any sort, really. This can be slow and daunting at first, but in my opinion, it's the best way. If you want to be a freelancer, you do not have to post content, and I'm going to explain the other 2 in a second. But I highly, highly recommend, if you want to be a top 1% freelancer, you post content. take one platform where your ideal client lives. So maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's Instagram, in a medium that you feel you can stay consistent with. For me, I always kind of liked writing, but I also liked video. And I also thought you could get so much traction on TikTok. There must be customers on here. And I saw other people promoting their services. So I got clients in two ways. As a very beginner, I used Upwork, which I'm going to talk about in a bit, but I also got inbound leads through TikTok. On TikTok, I would post about marketing and I wouldn't actually even sell my services. I had copywriter in my bio with a link to a form where someone could book a call with me. And I would simply break down my thoughts about some of the copy on a website that I saw or something that I was learning about copywriting. I never presented myself as an expert because I wasn't. I learned from YouTube University and just wrote a bunch of spec projects. But in that, clients saw how I thought and maybe liked the work that I was putting out there and related to me and booked a call. And all of a sudden, I had a freelance business where I was getting inbound leads. It didn't happen overnight. It starts small, but it will compound over time and work for you while you, because all of these algorithms now want people to stay on longer. So they push out content that has been posted for years and years to the right people. The algorithm gets better and better at knowing exactly who to push your content to. If you have things set up like a form or email or some way of contacting you that's optimized in your bio, you will start to get clients over and over again, work that you posted years and years ago. The freelancer that gets paid the most, yeah, they're solving problems, but if they don't know that you're out here solving problems, you'll still be broke. The highest paid freelancers solve problems, but everybody knows about them. They know they exist. It started 4 years ago, right? There's freelancers who have been in the game for decades, 16 years, etc. They were out here going to networking events, sending cold outreach messages and doing their best to be known in the real world, which I still think is valuable and I'll talk about in a bit. But the world now is heavily digital. To me, it would be doing yourself a disservice to not invest in one platform at least. So if you're thinking, I really, really hate short form video, I can't imagine myself doing that, or even long form video, you can write on LinkedIn. People post on LinkedIn and get clients on LinkedIn. One of my closest friends is literally a millionaire from posting on LinkedIn. So whatever limiting beliefs or thoughts are coming in your mind right now, snap out of it. That is inbound leads. Content is proof. It shows how you think, and showing how you think is what matters most when it comes to actually selling and building your portfolio. It doesn't matter if you have massive case studies. It actually just matters how you think, your soft skills as well, the way that you present yourself, the way you speak, or the way that you write. That tells a lot about you and can humanize you a lot more than someone else. So that's why even short form or long form video is great. The creative strategy course that I made a year ago, I still consistently get clients booking consulting calls and then paying me to do consulting from that video because they spend an hour plus listening to me, seeing how I think, and before they even meet me, because they spend this time with me. So don't underestimate the value of content. And also don't tell yourself, oh, there's 7-figure founders, 8-figure founders. The people I work with are online and they're paying people that might not be as skilled as you to do the thing that you can do. So that's a thought. Okay, number 2 is cold outbound. And this is you reaching out cold, meaning you have no prior connection or relation to them and you're just shooting in the dark, email or even a letter in the mail. I had a sales mentor that I mentioned earlier on who would literally send mailers to potential clients. How did he find their address? Couldn't tell you, but you got to get creative. So cold equals no prior connection. Also use this method. I would say out of 3, this was my least favorite because while I did see results from it and had some interesting conversations and signed 1 or 2 clients from this method, content for me was more high leverage because it compounds over time. Whereas you'll be sending DMs and follow-ups and emails and follow-ups forever. It can eventually get you a client, but it doesn't compound in a way that can be truly valuable and you can see a clear result from it other than getting that one literal client. When you're sending cold outreach messages, it's important for you to stand out. Danae, I can solve your problem, or I can help you, or I have this service. That's essentially what a cold outreach message is. Because so many people do it now, there's all these AI tools where you can spam a bunch of cold messages or emails to people. The way you stand out is by personalizing it. And when I say personalizing it, I mean going above and beyond to capture attention and share value up front. Instead of begging the potential client for money, which is essentially what most people are doing when they send a cold message, it's saying, hey, I have a lot of value to bring to you up front. And it creates a trust loop because they see, wow, this was really valuable. I could even take some of this and use it right now. If I ever need this, or if I need this right now, I'm happy to connect with you. So, an example of a cold message, I've received two really, really amazing cold messages in my life because I get a ton of cold messages now because I post publicly online. One of them being a YouTube agency that said, "Hey, Danae, hope you're doing well," something like that. "We wrote this YouTube script for you, sent it up front in the message. Here it is. If you film it, we'll edit the video for you for free." Amazing. One, they took time off my plate. If I actually liked the script, which was actually pretty decent, I would record it and then I would get it edited. And if they edit it really well and it actually performed really well, chances are I'm going to want to work with them and then they can offer their services to me for payment. That was a really good one. Unfortunately, I didn't need their services at the time, but they are always in my mind. And if I ever do need their services, I will blindly be like, "How much do you want from me?" I'm actually going to pull it up on my laptop here because I want to shout out this person. I think it'll be very valuable for you to see from a business owner standpoint what kind of cold message actually stands out in the inbox. So the subject line is, "I took your advice, Danae," with my name spelled correctly, and it went horribly wrong. That was the subject line. And then the first line in the email is, "And it went horribly wrong. I'm not even kidding. It screwed up everything. Not for me though, for my parents, because I have finally begun to do what I want and not what they want me to do. And damn girl, you also taught me how to prioritize myself instead of hanging around with victims." It was immediately intriguing because I opened this email like, "I took your advice." I'm thinking maybe it's somebody who watched my videos or who's in my program or watched one of my free videos, like free courses online, and took value from it, which I get all the time, right? So I was excited, but "it went horribly wrong" is obviously immediately intriguing. But then that line where they say, "You also taught me how to prioritize myself instead of hanging around victims." I have a video about not hanging around victims. So they're nodding to the fact that they've done their research and know my style and tone of voice. This is why I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. But I also have a special way to show my gratitude. Close your eyes, please. Whatever. It's a bit corny there, but they then link a Google Doc with a email that the title of the Google Doc is the phonetic spelling of my name, which I often put in my bios or whatever, because people usually pronounce my name in insane ways. Or they don't understand the accent aigu is A. So they'll say my name in such weird ways. Anyways, attention to detail. And then they had written emails in my tone of voice. I think about 4 emails written in my tone of voice and then a meme at the end of it. And the emails were pretty good. Now, I don't think I will ever outsource writing my newsletters or emails because it's so true to me and who I am and my voice and my style. But if anything were to happen in my life where I was scaling at a rate where I couldn't or I needed some extra hands on deck, I will 100% reach back out to this person because one, they show me how they think. They show me they can do research and write in a tone of voice. They can be a chameleon as a copywriter, which is extremely, extremely important. So you can tell that they went above and beyond to understand the tone of voice and style, match it, and then put effort into sending this cold outreach. So in my opinion, this is the best way for cold outreach. And I actually follow the same method in the e-com space. So I would send messages to founders of e-commerce brands on LinkedIn. This is when I was primarily selling email copywriting. I would send them a message similar to this, but very short because it was LinkedIn, with a Google Doc that had a couple emails in it that I wrote for their brand. And that worked out really well for me. I had good conversations, which led to clients, or they referred me to someone else who knew they needed someone like me. So it can compound in a different way, but the metrics aren't as clear as posting content. So when it comes to cold outreach, quality is important, but also quantity. You need to be sending a lot of these messages that are very good over time. So you can see why it's more advantageous to do content, but it is 100% possible to build a 6-figure business freelancing through cold outreach. You just have to pick your poison. Last, but certainly not least, we have warm outreach or warm outbound. And this is reaching out to people who are already in your world or you're clear that they need your services. So this is platforms like Upwork, or where somebody posts on LinkedIn or Twitter or a job board. They're looking specifically for some sort of freelancer. Because the thing is, with cold outreach, you have no idea if the client actually even needs your services at the time, like these people who have reached out to me in the examples I gave, right? So you could send the perfect curated message and style, but they just don't need you in that specific time period. With warm, the person is looking for you. You're just competing now with the people that say, hey, I can help you do that. The first freelance platform that I tried was Upwork. I also tried Fiverr. I wasn't a fan of it because I liked that with Upwork, I could control the outcome. Now I know that Upwork is ridiculous when it comes to pricing. They charge you for literally everything. Fortunately, when I started, it wasn't this way. I would still recommend investing the money into Upwork because I think it's the fastest method at getting clients. Warm outreach with Upwork paired with some content online specifically following the tips that I'm going to give you, building your portfolio and reaching out, the fastest and most efficient way to get clients of quality. Because especially if your client desperately needs you, the chances of you staying with them long term, if your work is good, is just higher. And likely they have a business that's already making money and they're committed and all the things. So example, there's other freelance platforms like Contra. I've never used them, so I'm sharing what I know. Fiverr, basically, you put up that you do a specific service, and then a client would come on, search up what they're looking for, and then go through the profiles. I never really found success on there, but with Upwork, clients would go on there and type in exactly what they're looking for, and then you can apply to the gig. And you apply to the gig with a cover letter, and you also have a profile. Your profile actually doesn't matter a ton on Upwork at all, because when you're applying to Upwork gigs, which I recommend you just make a client account and see how it looks when someone applies to your gig. I likely will have screenshots of it though in the Notion board I make for this video. But essentially, the client sees your profile, your first 2 lines, and then the first 2 lines of your cover letter. And then maybe if you have a verified badge on Upwork or something like that, which means you're just a freelancer who has had successful projects in the past or a certain threshold to get that badge, they'll see that. So really what you want to optimize for is making sure that the name, if you're applying to a gig for a specific thing, like video editor for female YouTuber, your title is female video editor specializing in feminine graphics. I don't know. It's just, you want to be very specific. And Upwork has this option where you can create different names and titles. And then you can just choose one for when you're applying. So that's really helpful. And then second, the first 2 lines being really powerful and clear so you can stand out from the rest. Now, what happens is a lot of people on Upwork will, or let's say somebody reaches on Twitter, tweets looking for a video editor, or someone on LinkedIn says, hey, LinkedIn, I'm looking for XYZ. People will respond with their resume and a boring message that you would send to a traditional corporate job. The thing is, it makes sense because that's what you're taught to do. But as a freelancer, one, there's no rules. You want to stand out in a way that's unique and different and be extremely memorable. Assuming loads of people are applying, but not necessarily the most skilled people, you want to be able to show them, hey, I'm the most skilled, here's why, and also save them time. You don't want them to have to read loads and loads of messages, loads of your life story and how you became a freelancer and stuff that's irrelevant to what they're looking for. We'll have examples of how you can curate a short, succinct message that gets the point across and makes clients immediately interested in working with you, or at the bare minimum, booking a call with you, archiving, putting you in a folder of shortlisted freelancers that they're willing to work with. When you're just starting out, I would say that warm outreach is the best thing to invest your time into, as well as content. I would probably do all 3, a mix, whichever one works the fastest for you, double down on that, but then always have a couple. As you continue to build in your freelance career, I think that content is kind of like an insurance plan. As I say, the world is fairly digital now, and it allows you to, and it gives you more confidence that, let's say you were to lose a client or you were to just want to transition out of a situation you don't like, having followers and content that's out there working for you, where you have a wait list of people who would be interested, or you can email or say, hey, doors are open for a new client or something like that. It gives you so much confidence and power. So that's why I recommend it so much. But if you are, for whatever reason, against that, there are other options that I've just described. So there you have it. Now, a lot of new freelancers don't realize that you can work with clients anywhere in the world. Thanks to COVID, which normalized remote work, and then these AI tools, which push it in, it's just the norm now. So often people are like, oh, but I'm in this country. It doesn't matter. I work with people all over the world. In fact, I currently live in London, United Kingdom. When I started out in the United States, then I got clients in Australia and the UK, all over the world. I've worked with clients in Bulgaria, the Netherlands. I could go on and on. It doesn't matter. And actually, it was amazing when I was living in Canada and working with clients in the US and the UK, because then I was just making more for my time because of the dollar. So your time can actually be worth more depending on where your clients are. When I was Canadian, I worked with clients in the UK, and obviously there's a massive time difference. What happens is a lot of you guys will self-select, especially women, will self-select ourselves out of opportunities. Don't do that. In freelancing, if you ever catch yourself self-selecting out of something, oh, I don't have this one skill that they put on there, so I'm not going to apply. Oh, they're in the United States and I'm in Spain, so I'm not going to apply. Do not do that. It takes one small conversation, even if the client believes that they would never work with someone for some reason in Spain, one conversation can completely change things. I had clients worried in the past, oh, you're in Canada, I'm in the UK, time difference, da da da. I was like, yeah, that's cool. As long as I get the work done, it's fine. And I would be able to do that. And this is how I built my business. If you see a gig on Upwork or you see someone say, hey, I want someone with this, and this experience, don't immediately say, oh, I can't do that. Figure out how you can position yourself in a way that gets them interested in working with you, and then see what they actually mean by that thing. Or if you already have the skill, but they just worded it in a way that didn't really make sense to you. The new kind of age of tech and AI leveled the playing field in a way that's insane. But yeah, I wanted to bring that point up. And also when it comes to payment, I guess I'll talk about that in the pricing section as well. I use Wise to collect payments in all different currencies. I have a UK bank account, US bank account. I could have a bank account in, I don't know, Pakistan if I wanted to with Wise and get paid in that currency. Then you can transfer it to your other business bank account. Like, it's really not that hard. Don't overthink it. Frustrating sometimes when people are like, oh, what about this? What about that? What about this? And they just never done the thing. Like, what about taxes? What about this, that, and the third? Like, of course you think about it, but it's like, why are you so stressed about this thing if you just haven't done it? Like, the closer you get to doing the thing and then doing the thing, the more you realize, oh, it wasn't a big deal. Like, this just took me 20 minutes to figure out and now we're good and we can just keep going. So if you take anything away from this section, don't self-select yourself out of something. Always question yourself when you say, I can't do this or this wouldn't work for me. The freelance world doesn't have any rules. So I know there's going to be comments on here, even though I say this, that are like, Danae, do you think I can do this? Is this allowed? Anything, this is the wild, wild west, really. But as a freelancer, you're curating the world and life that you want. If you don't want to work in a specific way with clients, tell them. If they don't want to do that, don't work with them. You find clients that align with how you want to work. I prefer clients who like asynchronous communication. I have one meeting a week with some of my clients. I do consulting with one client who just prefers that method. So we do 90-minute calls once a week. That's perfectly fine for me because it's usually my only call. And I built that because I realized when I first started that I hated client calls and I would be doing that. And I'm like, wait, I'm in charge here. That's why I'm freelancing. So I'm just not going to work with clients who want to have a call every other day. Simple as that. Clients, how to get them. I recommend doing all 3 forms of outreach: posting content, doing cold outreach, and warm outreach. In the Notion board, you'll find different examples of how this can look and the methods to do that specifically. But ultimately, it comes down to adding value up front and showing how you think. So on top of sending a really good, succinct message that shows why they should care about you, adding a loom with some personalization that breaks down something that they're asking about or what they're looking for, that explains how they think, you stand out and eventually entertain conversations with clients and sign them. Once you start getting a result from one of the methods, double down on that methods. Always have 2 going for you. And I personally recommend always posting content in a medium that makes sense for you. If you're doing a lot of cold outreach or warm outreach, I recommend making a tracker. This is not something I did, but it can be helpful so you can kind of see how many messages it takes to get a result. And also I would copy and paste the messages that work, get a response, or even get you a client. So that way you can double down on those as well. It's just good to have that information. If you're doing cold outreach, I recommend following up every 4 to 5 days. There's a system when it comes to following up. Some follow-up messages will be deeper, explaining more about what you can offer, or some will just be a quick, hey, I know you're probably really busy and you saw this already, didn't have the time to respond. So I'm just shooting you a message again, something like that. More on that in the Notion. Never, ever, ever take not getting a response from a client personally. It could be a range of things as to why they don't respond. Even if you have a really good client call and they say, okay, I'm going to work with you, and then they ghost you, never take it personally. I've seen this happen a jillion times where people crash out. Oh my goodness, they're a liar. What the hell? I got ghosted, And really the client just had some insane circumstance in their life, or they eventually come back to you because something happened, or whatever the case is. Regardless, even if that's not the case, never take it personally. Business is business. It didn't work. You move on. Don't celebrate until your contract is signed and money is in your account. Otherwise, you keep going. It's not a personal attack on you. And there's always a lesson in these type of situations that happen. So you want to refine your message every 10 to 20 responses. So that's why I recommend tracking the messages that you're sending: warm outreach, cold outreach, refining the ones that worked / didn't work, and keep that process going. The people who succeed the best at getting clients understand that getting clients isn't begging for someone to fork over money to you. It is adding value, showing that you can solve their problem, and that shows up in how you think. So I'm going to end this client section off on the portfolio side of things. I'm going to explain it in the most basic and simple way, and I want you to then execute it in this way. People will overcomplicate this and stay in this position forever. They'll know exactly what they need to do, but not really do it because they're like, I'm building my portfolio. What you want to do is take action and move as fast along as possible, get in the arena and tweak as you go. That is how you're going to succeed in the freelancing system. So for your portfolio, in the very, very beginning, I had a Google Drive with folders that said copyright, email marketing. I wrote copy for random brands that I found online that was honestly pretty bad, and emails from random brands that I found online that was honestly pretty bad. And when clients asked for my portfolio or when I was sending a cold outreach message or an email, I would attach that. If it was a cold one where I was creating an email, I would then create the email. All of those emails that I created for cold outreach or copy pieces or whatever would then get inserted into my portfolio. You can title them spec to make it clear that you didn't work with that specific brand and it's a spec project. But you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because clients don't care whether you got paid to do the thing. They care, can you do the thing? It is as simple as that. Now, some of you watching creatives, some of you watching have very artistic services and work. If that is the case, you will likely need to do more than a Google Drive portfolio. Does that mean you need to go spend $1,000 on a fancy website? Not necessarily. What you want to do is show your artistic work to the best of your capabilities in a way that can show clients, wow, if her things look like this, I wonder what she could create for me or he can create for me, / I like the way they think. How do you emphasize how you think? Attached to any portfolio, website, Google Drive folder that I created. Hello, my name is Danae. I graduated with a degree in journalism and humanities, which meant that I live and breathe writing and storytelling, which is exactly why I'm the copywriter that you need. Insert something specific and nice and something about their brand that's going to make them think, oh my goodness, she understands it, she gets it. And then show some of the work that you've done or work that you did for them to show them that you can do the thing, and explain one specific thing that you think is relevant to them or could help them. Example, copy. I noticed on your website that you have XY. I would love to A/B test how this would work. Perspective and a little bit of research. This could actually work. Looking forward to chatting with you. As a beginner, that's literally what I did over and over and over again. Obviously, over time, it got refined. I was able to name drop brands I worked with or share how much revenue I've made brands with my work or show the graphs, Excel sheets, research, scripts, and all the things that I've done and then beef it up so it gives me more of an edge. But before that, it was as simple and as bare bones as that. One of the clients that I work with to this day, making $1 million a month. I started working with them when they were making like 20K, 30 a month, found me on Upwork because I had a good title, Gen Z female copywriter. And I sent an Upwork message that emphasized my love for writing in Gen Z lingo to a female audience in the e-com space. They were looking for someone who was witty and fun. I wrote my cover letter in the most unprofessional way you could possibly imagine, in a witty and fun way. They were like, hey, like what you did, let's do this test project. Boom. Still working with them to this day. In fact, I am technically head of socials for them. I'm leading their TikTok team, doing a bunch of things. I started with a simple, witty, fun message and a loom like I just described. So your portfolio doesn't need to be intense. Actually, the more filled it isn't the better. It's the quality of the work. I recommend if you're creating the Google Drive portfolio or whatever sort of thing you're putting together, make sure it's relevant to the type of clients that you're going to reach out to. So once I realized I was getting traction in the e-com space, I would make sure that any portfolio pieces I was putting in there were e-com focused, because I was doing work for personal brands online. I was writing emails and doing XYZ for those types of people, but I wasn't including that in the portfolio that I was sending to an e-com brand because I wanted to show the e-com brand, hey, I can do the thing. I've worked for jewelry brands, makeup brands, you name it. And it's all because they could see the work that I was doing for brands that knew of or they didn't know of, but then when they looked and then they saw the writing that they wanted to emulate just in relation to their brand. So think of when you're doing spec work to relate it. So if you're a video editor and you want to edit for a specific, if you want to do really creative retro edits, don't make Alex Hormozy style edits. Love him, but that editing style is not going to attract the type of person you want if you want this retro, unique editing style type of client. You know what I mean? So think about the end result and then build your portfolio around that. I would say, especially more artistic or intense work, whether it's coding or whatever. I know a lot of really cool, smart people are watching this, whatever insane skill you have that you're doing. I would say maximum spend 3 weeks, give you a month to build out this portfolio. With spec projects, if you don't have any projects under your belt, once you do that, immediately stop looking at it and go out there and get clients. I personally took 2 weeks to build out this thing and went for it. And that's what I want all of you to do as well. The people who are going to get the client, even if they're dumber or worse at the service than you are the ones who put themselves out there. So put yourself out there now. Literally now. The next question you're thinking is, okay, cool. How do I price myself? What the heck do I put on Upwork? What if I get on a call? What am I going to price myself? It makes me sick. I'm confused. I don't know. I got you. Let's get into pricing. If you're watching this in real time, meaning the end of 2025, I'm actually going into more detail in a live workshop setting on how to get your first or next freelance client. The link will be the second link in the description. I held a workshop in July. We had over 300 people come. We do breakout rooms where people get to meet each other and connect. It's really fun and just as even more actionable. So make sure to sign up before spots fill up. And if you're watching this and that time has already passed, there will likely be another link there to work with me one-to-one. Alrighty, this is where most people get stuck or shoot themselves in the foot or keep themselves in a plateau. You need to get clear on your numbers, whether that's the client messages you're sending or your offer and how that's benefiting your clients, or how much you're charging and why. And it seems scary. I wasn't good at math most of my life, so I kind of avoided this conversation. But the moment I became clear on my numbers, everything changed. First things first, anything you believe about how you get paid for a service in your 9 to 5, throw it out the window. It is irrelevant in the freelance world. Absolutely irrelevant. Do not go into the freelance world thinking about getting paid hourly or getting paid in a salary. Whatever beliefs you have about money from your 9 to 5 or from what you think a 9 to 5 is, do not bring those thoughts into freelancing. The freelancing world is the wild, wild west. There are copywriters getting paid, I don't know, $20 an hour, and like me getting paid $10,000 from one client. The difference is the skill, getting close to the money, but also how we negotiate and price ourselves based on the value that we're bringing. Because remember when I mentioned that you need to get close to the money so that you can show for a client, this is where this becomes important because there's a clear measurable outcome when working with you. You're going to be good. You're going to be able to make a lot more. So my approach as a freelancer, the way that I teach and what I recommend to any freelancer is to work on retainer, build out retainer packages. I am of the belief that no matter what you're offering, there is a way to get a retainer out of it. So a retainer is just a continuous contract or amount of pay. So you can have an $800 a month retainer, $1,000 a month, $5,000, $10,000, so on and so forth. So you're consistently getting paid for a specific set of deliverables or an amount on a contract. So usually when you think of freelancing or how a lot of people freelance is they do a project. So I will do this video edit for you. I will make this website for you. Then you get paid, let's say $3,000 for this thing. They pay you, maybe they pay you 50% up front, 50% at the end, which I recommend. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then that's done. And then you don't work with that client anymore. Usually when you get closer to the money, so you start with what I shared in the beginning, that problem that consistently needs to be nurtured or solved over time, over and over again, to create a package or to work in a capacity where a retainer is already a thing that the client is doing or needs. So let's go to the web designer example. The web designer may create a website, consistently have to get a certain amount of clients to make a certain amount of money per year. The closer the web designer gets to the money, the easier it will be for them to get paid on retainer. So the web designer might think, okay, I'm going to work on building sales pages for e-com brands that convert 10% more than they do. And they'll do this by upskilling and learning direct response marketing and conversion rate optimization. E-commerce stores consistently new landing pages for different seasons, different campaigns, different sales, different products, and on. So they can get paid on retainer to consistently be converting and creating these landing pages, have a certain more people converting or whatever the case is. And immediately, one, they can get paid on retainer, but get paid more on retainer because it's very clear the work that they're doing is valuable. There's a clear outcome, monetary outcome from the work that they're doing. Okay, so now we're clear what retainer is and why it's valuable and why I recommend that. It's totally okay to start off with one-off projects, which is what I did. I would do website copywriting, which means clients would come to me and they would say, hey, we need copy for these 5 pages. We're building this website, or we want to update our website. We want our copy to be written in this tone of voice. Can you do that for me? I would say yes. And then I would send a proposal, which I'm going to talk about how to do all these things in a bit, for that amount of copy. And then they would pay me, and then I would get another client. So because I had the content I was posting on TikTok, I would have about 3 clients. I would sign probably about 3 clients from TikTok a month, which was actually pretty good considering I didn't know what the heck I was doing when it came to content and sales. I would be working with them simultaneously, but sometimes things would get slower. And that's when I decided to start using Upwork and thinking of different ways to attract clients and get paid. So it was good, and I liked doing the one-off projects. That period is really good because it also helped me build my portfolio as well. I did one one-off project this year because I have multiple clients on retainer now, and I've had them for years. I did do one-off project, but it was from a client that I did a one-off project for the year before that I love, and they were just doing an update and wanted me to do it because I did the first batch of it. I know that there's a lot of creatives out there who maybe it's difficult for your specific type of work or industry to have a retainer. There's always a way, which is why the community is good, because we're able to dive deep into your scenario and help you brainstorm. But I recommend, if you're creative and you want to fulfill your passions in this specific way that it's hard to get paid well for it, you do these one-off projects to fulfill that itch. And then you have retainers that maybe it's not your favorite work in the world, but you have like a 70% enough passion or love for it to then be able to do that, get paid well, and pursue the other things. So I'm going to talk about that near the end. Let's keep freelancing long-term. So retainers make freelancing stable. People say I don't like freelancing because it's not as stable as a 9 to 5. Your 9 to 5 is not stable because you can lose your job at any time, and also your income is capped. As a freelancer, your income is uncapped. Your 9 to 5 is actually just predictable. And if you freelance on retainer with multiple clients and you build out this specific system that I'm laying out for you here, it becomes just as predictable, but your income isn't capped. You can make more, and likely you do make more if you do it the smart way. So you can also see that when it came to the trajectory of me being curious about how to get closer to the money, getting closer to the money also meant that the problem I was solving was reoccurring. Also usually a cross section there. So maybe you are a graphic designer who wants to offer branding. In that case, a big one-off project where you create their branding and you do all the things. And then after that project is done, you have an upsell, something they can buy into afterwards. That is a retainer. We can help them with content that's on brand using video editing, content styles, or whatever. I'm just coming up with examples here. A retainer is usually built off a set of deliverables. As an example, I have a consulting retainer for one of my clients where the deliverable that I'm giving them consistently is 90-minute meeting once a week, every single month, as well as ad hoc Slack responses. Sometimes they'll just have random questions on Slack in a decent time frame. As long as I meet those deliverables, they pay me for that on retainer consistently. I have other clients where my deliverable is writing a certain amount of ad scripts. So let's say 10 ad scripts a week, and they pay me a monthly rate for doing that, as an example. So there's no rule on how you can build a retainer. A retainer can be built in any way. I have another retainer that's more fluid. There isn't a specific amount of deliverables. It's more overseeing and managing the process of things. And then I also get bonuses, percentage of the results that work then causes. So a percentage of sales from TikTok, as an example, or from Meta for the way that my work then performs and makes the money. So there's no rules, and it can be set up in various ways. I've just given you a range of examples, so hopefully that's getting your gears turning, and hopefully I've successfully sold you on trying to run your business in this way. I wouldn't say I'm risk averse at all. I'm actually quite the opposite, but I do like to have some sort of predictability in my life, feelings like stability. So as an example, as a freelancer, I make sure I have 6 months of savings. I built a retirement fund, and I'll talk about that stuff in the longevity section. That keeps me feeling good, but it also keeps me being good working in this way. Once I realized I was able to do this, it changed the way that I thought and approached freelancing for the long run. So how do you even get started on a retainer or doing hourly work? You may get started doing hourly work in the beginning. This is what I did. It is 100% possible to skip doing hourly work if you just follow this and just have lower retainers. I would say $800 to start as a beginner is fair. And likely the businesses that you're reaching out to work with should be able to afford that sort of investment for the service that you're offering if the service you're offering is solving a problem. So it goes back to that thing that I mentioned in the beginning. Regardless, how do you even build out a retainer rate or an hourly rate? That's what we're going to talk about now. The simplest way is to pick an average hourly rate that makes sense for your market and your level, but also covers your basic needs. So in the Notion board, I'm going to have some sort of formula that you can use to calculate this, which is what I did in the very beginning. I started off at $30 an hour USD and worked my way up until I started offering packages and retainers. So you can do the calculations to get to your hourly rate, or like me, you can just say, hey, you know what? $30 an hour seems pretty decent at my base level and my skill set. I'm just going to use that as a base and go for it. It really is not that serious. You can do the same research on Upwork, go on Instagram, go on LinkedIn, see what people are saying they're paying or looking to pay, and then curate yours from there. I actually created a GPT for the She Freelances girls to curate their packages and hourly rates. The GPT takes the calculation thing that I put in the Notion and does it for you automatically. The knowledge base of the GPT has the nuances that I've explained about retainers, and so it can help you create actual packages without much thinking. That is one of my favorite things that I've created for freelancers so far. I would say also, when you do that manual calculation, a good way to think about it, and I've heard many other freelancers who've been freelancing for decades share this idea as well in different ways. Make sure that the rate that you are offering, if you had to split with another freelancer, the profit, you be able to make a comfortable living doing so. So as if you were an agency owner, that number will guide you in whether it's a fair and sustainable price. Big reminder that your goal is not to be the cheapest. Being the cheapest freelancer will actually shoot you in the foot, because it's sending a message subconsciously to your clients that you're not as good, you're not an investment, you're not confident. The cheaper you are, the worse clients that you'll attract. You'll attract people who probably don't have enough to pay you, which means their business is not really doing well, or they're just really frugal and don't value investing in themselves or their business, which is usually not the best client to work with. So your goal should be to price yourself correctly. The way that I got to my first retainer package pricing, when I literally had no idea how to do any of this stuff, was I took my hourly rate, which eventually went up to $50, $70, and I would add up the amount of time that I thought it would take me, that I kind of roughly knew it would take me to do a project. Then I would add on maybe 3 to 4 hours of time where things can go wrong, revisions that you don't really account for, or thinking time that you're not really thinking about in the first batch of hours that you're adding up. I would add that extra 3 to 4 hours on. And then I saw something early in my journey from some freelancer online talking about adding your freelancer tax. So insert name tax, Danae tax, whoever is watching this tax, where a little bit of a premium onto your service or package based on your soft skills that you're bringing to the table, your communication, the things that you invest into making the experience good for your client, your education and background, your degree, that knowledge that you're bringing in, whatever it is, you're adding like a little bit of extra premium onto that there. So I would use that formula to build out my first package for, let's say, website copywriting, and then use the same formula to build out my retainers. So X amount of deliverables based on how long I think each deliverable would take me. Then I would get to a rough rate. For an intermediate freelancer, it's usually around 2,000, 2,500. And then as you get into that expert level, you'll see the 3,000 up and up and up. And there's different ways that you can have retainers. So you can have a retainer where you have a lower retainer, which let's say it's like 1,000, but you get a percentage of revenue, or you get a percentage of the sales or outcome that the client is making. There's different ways that you can set up the retainer, and there's no one way or rule or kind of method you should follow for every client. And it really just depends on the industry and the type of conversation you have with the client. You can see that freelancing is very fluid, and you need to be fluid and open as well. I used to have packages and different ways I went about things, but I realized over time that each client needs something slightly different, even if it was in the same industry. Based on the conversations that I would have with clients, that is how I would tweak the package or retainer. But I would say generally a good way to go about it as a beginner freelancer is following that method that I just shared. And then when you're on a call with a client or an email conversation with a client to get to the next step of them paying you, you offer 3 different packages. So whether this is one-off projects or a retainer, you offer 3 tiers. The middle tier is the tier that you kind of want to anchor so that they're like, yes, this makes the most sense. It's most optimized for your time and pay. The bottom tier, this would be a good tier. If they signed on this, it would be good money for you and a lot of value for them. And the first tier is something a little bit smaller. It's not advantageous for you. You would still do it. It's not doing you a disservice, but it's not the best pay and it's little value for the client. And when you're making these, you want to think more about, again, the value and the outcome that they're getting based on what they need, rather than trying to think about more work for you, like more hours and labor for you to put in. So maybe you're a social media manager and you have a base package of $2,000 a month where you do 30 posts using Canva, and you have 1 meeting or you send 1 Loom to them at the end of the month tracking analytics. And that's like a base package. A premium package might be $3,000, weekly analytic updates. You're building out assets or systems for them in Notion as you're going, so that even if you weren't working with them anymore, they would be able to consistently use those assets or templates. And you can see how it's something that you would already be doing, but you're adding extra value for them. The smaller package might be half the deliverables, as an example. Okay, so I'm going to go through some quick pricing examples or rates that I know other freelancers charge in the industry based on their skill set for specific deliverables, to give you a metric that you can follow. Again, there is a baseline, but there's no kind of right or wrong exact way or amount to charge for a specific thing. You can be doing the same exact thing and getting paid 10K a month or a month based on how big the business is and how much they value the thing you're doing. This is why it's hard to give broad information to freelancers because it can be very nuanced. Okay, so as an example, email marketing. As a beginner copywriter, you can get paid to $1,500 a month for 4 emails a week, plus maybe some optimization, reporting, or segmentation. I've seen designers charge $2,000 a month for 10 to 15 assets per month, especially if it's in the paid ad space, but it could be in any space. It really just depends on the value that asset is bringing to the business. A video editor editing weekly content, let's say 2 long form videos a month with graphics, music, all the things, maybe doing 2 shorts from each video to $6,000 a month, depending on how intense the edits that they were making are, and also what those videos were doing for the client. So are the videos converting people? Are they helping curate the script and storyline as well, potentially to drive sales for the client? Or are they just purely doing video editing? It's going to be on the lower side. It's former, it's going to be on the higher side. A marketing consultant can get paid $5,000, $6,000 for strategy and consulting calls. And on the higher side, if you're creating assets from those calls, maybe mini courses or building out systems for them to use, it'll be on the higher side. On the lower side, if it's just the calls in and of itself. However, depending on how you are, if you have 10, 15 years of experience, then things change, right? Again, it's the wild, wild west. It really just depends on who you're doing the thing for and how valuable and knowledgeable you are. Creative, like a photographer, videographer, you can get paid per shoot, or you can do a retainer. You can find someone who consistently does shoots already and get paid, let's say $2,000 a month for a shoot every month. You can also include post-production, creative direction, and increase the retainer. So you're doing a full scope thing and getting paid $5,000, $6,000 a month. There are people out there where their whole business is based off the content they post. Therefore, they need consistent shoots. So if you can find those people, you can get paid well. Okay. So hopefully you have a good picture. I share these examples to get your brain going. As I said, no matter what you do, there's always a way to turn it into a retainer. When you start thinking like that, everything will change for you. It'll be easier to get out of a plateau, and you'll be able to enjoy the freedom that freelancing can give you. So a big question I always get asked as well is when and how do you raise your rates? Again, no one's going to tell you it's time to raise your rates, just like I think in a 9-to-5. No one's really going to tell you it's time to ask for a raise. You have to do it for yourself. That's why I love freelancing. I talk about it all the time in relation to my self-development journey because it really made me confront limiting beliefs and go out there and get what I want in life. This is a natural part of your freelancing career. You should do this and it reflects your growth, not greed. I have a lot of mindset videos on how to fix your relationship with money if you struggle with something like this. I will put on the screen, but I usually recommend raising your rates roughly every 6 to 12 months. Now, again, things can be nuanced. If you are skill stacking and really taking courses and building up your expertise fast, this may differ. It may be near the 4-month, 5-month mark, but there will be periods where maybe you don't have a lot of time so you can take that number lightly, but ultimately you raise your rates whenever your expertise, confidence, or results are noticeably improved. So the first time I raised my rates, I just literally saw myself getting better. My clients were very happy. I was retaining clients and my work was performing well for my clients. I had a little increase in my rates. I raised it from beginner levels to more mid-tier levels that I was seeing in the market. The next time I raised my rates quite significantly, it was when I started paid ad script writing and one of my ads generated hundreds of thousands of dollars for my client. I realized, wow, I'm actually pretty good at this. My client's very happy and I can put that stamp on my name and my services now. Therefore, I can increase it. I always started back to that hourly rate. My hourly rate went from like $30 to $100, $150, $200. And then I would curate the base and the packages and the retainers based off of that using the same formula just described to you earlier on. Ideal if the time that you raise your rates line up with a new quarter or a new year. At the end of the year, I'll reflect on the clients that I have. Is there a need for an increase or a rejigging of the way that we work together? At that time, I'll usually say, hey, this is my plan for the new year. Happy to have you as a client. I usually also like to send a letter or a little bit of a gift to my clients as well. But I would say that moving into like a new season, so quarter or end of the year is a good time to do this. Send a little message, thank them for your time working together, reflect, share, remind them of the results or things that you've done for them and say, hey, I'm changing my rates. you don't need to give them an explanation. It's just like, this is how I see us working together. Does this work for you? Let me know. Usually your clients say yes. Worst case scenario, they'll say no and they'll negotiate a little bit. And that is common and what is expected in business. So that leads me to my next point, which is something I think is really important: to negotiate. That's just business. Shooting low is shooting yourself in the foot, because oftentimes they may even try and negotiate down from your lower rate, which then makes you work what is even worth the effort and capacity that you're putting into things. So expect to negotiate before you get on calls or in the middle of your negotiations, wherever that is taking place. Have a base number in your head that's the lowest you'll go for a certain amount of deliverables. That way you know where your baseline is, and if they go below that, you know you're not going to take it. Now, I don't want to scare you away, because I've never been in a negotiating battle with my clients ever. The most I've ever had to negotiate was when I said the biggest retainer I've ever in my life, which is when I was a beginner, and I said I wanted $10,000 to help this agency with ad scripts. He was like, I think he said, that's too much for me. I can do 6,000 Canadian dollars, I believe. And he was like, hey, I can do that. I was not expecting him to say yes to 10K, but I wanted to push my numbers. But that's really the most sort of negotiation I've had. I haven't had to go that much back and forth. Keep your negotiations simple and professional. I'll leave a little bit of a message template in the Notion document for you to use if you ever need to, but really you don't need to follow that. You're having a conversation with someone who you're bringing value to in the context of wanting to raise rates. So don't go out there and apologize or try and justify. Good clients expect you to grow. They want to hold on to you, but if they can't, they likely see your value and want you to go out there and succeed and continue to crush it. That's the beauty of freelancing and the relationships that you build. If someone leaves because of a rate increase, it actually just opens up the doors for you to work with other clients, bigger opportunities. Your job isn't to please everybody. Don't feel bad if you don't work with a client. You want to find the clients who just need your unique skill set and life experience and knowledge all packaged together. Okay, this is Danae in editing here. There are about 3 sections in this video where I think I missed adding an important detail or nugget for you guys that I absolutely did not want to post a video without adding. So the part that I really wanted to add in here is doing test projects. Now, this is huge. I would say 98% of the retainer clients that I've ever signed, we did a test project to start. I learned the rules of this game over time. So I'm going to tell you what I used to do and what I recommend doing and do now. But test projects are essentially something you can offer, or you get a response back from a cold email or somebody reaches out inbound. A great way to kind of break the ice and build trust if they're a little bit wary, but even if they're not, they might just be looking to work with other freelancers and just not sure who to pick. They likely want to do a test project and will recommend that, but I recommend you immediately suggesting a test project, because it shows that you're capable and ready to show that you're a good fit for them. I would say 1 to 5 hours of work, sometimes more, it just depends on what you're doing, that is reflective of the deliverables that you would be doing for your client. As an example, for paid ad, script writing, or creative strategy, it's likely creating 1 to 3 ad scripts for a specific product or brand to show them that you can do what they're looking for, so they can see how you think about things, to see your copy skills, all of that stuff. So imagine that in the capacity of your industry. I think that I used to do was a free test project, which I don't recommend. Always do a paid. There are instances where if you're a super beginner, you just need to get your foot in the door, it's a really good opportunity or brand, it's worth it to just do the thing. Once you have enough under your belt, definitely don't do a free test project. And there are a couple reasons why. So what I used to do was either do free ones or make it really cheap. But what that does is create a precedent or a standard that you are a cheap freelancer. So then when it comes to negotiating your rates and setting your big girl, big guy retainer rates, they're like, wait, how come you're charging this much for this when your test project was this amount? So I would say for your test project, use that base hourly rate that you use to develop the retainer package based on whatever they're asking you for. So 3 to 5 hours of work, you can roughly estimate it in your head, charge that amount for the test project. It seems scary, but again, when you do things like this, you weed out the bad clients. Sometimes they're gonna be like, hey, I can do 150 or 200, let's say, for a test project. That seems like a reasonable amount as long as it's not this insane amount of work. It really just depends. It's nuanced. I can't give you all the details because I don't know what you offer and the client and all the things, but I think this is really important. So this creates trust, and then this allows the client to see how you work. I would recommend sending the test project in a bit before the date that they expect you to send it in. Add a little something extra to the test project. It depends on the capacity that you're working in, but maybe it's a video or a research document or just something that shows you're the freelancer that they should hire. Once you do that and they are happy with it, they're going to want to work with you on retainer. So you're not going to have to do much selling, and it's going to be easy for you to justify your prices as long as you price your test project in a reasonable way. You don't always need to do this if they're happy to work with you right away, or especially if you're doing a one-off project. A test project isn't really going to make sense. But for retainers, it gives you a way to kind of strut your skill set and show off and build that trust. So in my first conversation, especially if it's not a book a call situation and it's just an email response back or a message response back, I usually respond something like, hey, thank you so much for getting back to me. Really excited to potentially work with you. By the way, I'm happy to do a test project to kind of kick off our working relationship or to see XYZ, something professional and kind. So once you learn how to stand behind your price, you have to communicate that. How do you do that? This actually wasn't something I initially thought I was going to speak about today. I didn't share it in the intro. So let's call this a little bonus section on calls and conversations with clients or messaging, kind of negotiating with clients, red flags, discovery calls, sales calls, that kind of thing. Your goal isn't to just convince them that you're a good fit. You should actually be trying to qualify them. Think of it as a two-way interview. You are both deciding if you're a good fit. As a freelancer, you are curating the life you want to live. You are choosing your clientele, people who you're going to associate with, people who are going to pay your invoices. Therefore, you want to make sure that you're choosing wisely. This is important. I learned this the hard way and worked with literal assholes. Don't make that mistake. It's not worth it. It not only affects how much money you make, it affects your mental health, which means you'll likely not have the capacity or brain power, or desire to reach out to other clients or stay freelancing. It does much more damage when you say, oh, I'll just do it for the money or for the experience, than if you just say, you know what? No, I am better than this, or I deserve better than this because this person is horrible. So qualify your clients. I would say on average, spend 70% listening, come with questions, and 30% talking. I'm going to share some things that you could ask or think about. So questions like, what made you look for help right now? Are they going through a bunch of freelancers fast? If they are, maybe that's something to think about. Why are a bunch of freelancers leaving? Are they in a rush? Why are they in a rush? Do they have an organized system in place? Are you going to be thrown into a fire? Maybe that's what you want to do. Or maybe it's what you want to completely avoid. Something to think about. Do they have a sketchy drop shipping business or a actual brand that they've invested to create the product and spend time into? Something to think about. A question to ensure that you can get them the results they're looking for. What would success working with me look like for you in the next 3 months? So you get very clear on the outcome. That's a very important question to ask. So ask these questions, make sure you're qualifying them. Your energy matters just as much as your experience. So stay calm, stay confident. If they're booking a call with you or interested in working with you, they likely already like what they see. You just need to get them over the edge. You guys just need to see if you're actually a right fit based on the other small kind of nuances. So especially if someone booked a call with you through content that you posted, they likely already self-selected and convinced themselves that they want to work with you. Really, they just want to get the details ironed out. So make sure to think about things in that way. I would say red flags to look out for are vague responses, not really sure on what they're looking for. There's no clear payment process or deliverable that you guys can agree on. There's a lot of urgency. We need this by tomorrow. We don't have the assets yet. Could you come in and change our entire business in 2 months? There's a lot of decision makers that don't seem to be making any decisions. So there's just a lot of cooks in the kitchen that are kind of just confusing things and have opposing views that will result in you not really having a direction or not knowing how to go about certain things. Or ultimately, they're just not clear on what they're looking for. Sometimes you might find a client who's looking for a role, but they don't know what to call it because it's a mix of things, and that's fine. So really use your intuition, use your gut instinct to help you, but this is just supposed to give you a baseline of things to think about. After a call, I definitely recommend sending a short follow-up email, chatting with you, looking forward to working with you. If you promise sending them something like a proposal or a contract or something like that, attach it. But a message like that can go a long way. As a beginner, I remember getting, quote, interviewed, because I didn't think of it in this way. I got interviewed by an agency owner. I sent a follow-up email thanking him for his time and telling him even if we don't work together, it was great to connect and to keep me in mind and da-da-da. And he said that that's the reason why he ended up working with me. Granted, it was a very low retainer, but I learned so much in that agency, which has helped me now in the work that I do consulting years later. And if they ghost you after a call where they kind of verbally finalize things, just follow up in 3 to 4 days. It's not the end of the world. Usually they respond, something crazy happened, move on, keep it moving. Okay, editing Danae here again. I needed to add this in. Never accept working with one client full time. Never. What is the point of freelancing? To have that autonomy. You can diversify your income, with different clients, different ways of getting paid and working with clients, and then also using that time to build out something else for yourself. So what is the point of working with one client full time? Even if they're paying you loads of money, sometimes it's a strategic decision for a certain amount of time. Let's say you're a beginner, someone offers you $6,000 a month plus a certain amount of bonuses to work with them exclusively. You do that for 6 months to get your foot in the door, to get your portfolio experience, and then you have that income there, and then you go out and branch out. But it's never, ever worth, like, clients all the time on Upwork, they're always, oh, will you work full time? I'm looking for a full-time freelancer. There's no such thing as a full-time freelancer, full stop. This is one of my biggest pet peeves in the industry. I have gotten on calls where in the first 2 minutes, someone would ask, would you be willing to work full time? My answer is no. And they'll just sit there and look at me and I'll be like, I'm a freelancer. If I wanted to work full time, I would just get a job that gives me the benefits of working full time. Because freelancing is the wild, wild west, there's this weird dynamic where a lot of business owners, or especially in the agency world, will expect you to work full time for no full time benefit. If I personally, as a freelancer, think that's a boundary, it doesn't make sense to me. Therefore, I do not do it, and I wouldn't recommend any of you doing it. And another reason is because a lot of times when they say, oh, can you work full time? They'll say because they want you to not work with anyone else and have your, quote, full attention to them. But if you have dialed in operations and workflow, you're able to work with 3, 5, 6 clients at a time. It depends what you're doing. But again, the reason you freelance is so you have that autonomy, you have that diversified income. Therefore, saying, yeah, I will not work with anyone else, and shooting yourself in the foot, it's doing yourself a disservice. And what if then that business doesn't work out? They fail, something happens. Then what? You're looking for other opportunities and you're in a horrible situation. So sometimes it's strategic. Most of the time it's not. Never say yes to that. This is why the most important thing you should be aiming to do is become so damn good at what you do as a freelancer. That gives you so much leverage. Because for me, not to toot my own horn, but I work with the top of the top paid creative strategists and agencies in the online space. My name gets thrown around. I got really good brands, people wanting to work with me. And if they come on the call and say they want me to work full time and I say no, they're gonna be like, okay, how can we work with you? How can we make this happen? Because they want my expertise, my work ethic, my skill set. I built that up through my reputation and results over time. But even when I was a beginner and I didn't have all that experience under my belt, I would just say no. And they'd see the value in me because of, like, let's say the test project or whatever work that I put together in my spec portfolio. And it was fine. It's just kind of a way of negotiating or trying to see if they can milk everything they can get. I think there's a saying, it's like if you give people an inch, they'll take a yard or something like that. It's kind of like that. If you allow them to overstep in that way, they'll just milk that opportunity. So the only thing that you should ever accept, or that is normal in this type of realm or conversation, is a non-compete agreement. So oftentimes with an agency, they might put in the contract that you can't work with any of their clients 6 months, a year after, or poach them, which is totally fair. And that's, like, obviously reasonable. Or if you're working with a specific brand, they might say you cannot work with a competitor brand as well, or share their insights or something like that, which again is reasonable. But anything other than that is not worth you accepting. These are some of my little mini cheat codes for having conversations with clients. So if you're getting inbound leads from posting content, qualify them before you get on a call with them. What helped to get the ideal client who was ready to work with me, and it was just a quick call and then we just get started literally in a couple days, was having a questionnaire that said, what are they looking for, where they could tick certain boxes that I knew I could offer them. What is your budget? And I would have my minimum amount that I would be willing to do work for. So let's say that was $2,500 and other things. So they already go into the call knowing, okay, this is the minimum I'm likely going to pay. Likely maybe it'll be a bit more. This is what she does. Do you have XYZ? Like those kind of questions. And then they already know what they're getting into. So when I get on a call with them, they've self-selected to work with me. And likely if they're putting in the time to fill out the questionnaire, invested in you a little bit, they see what you're offering and they're willing to go forward with it. So if you're posting content, have some sort of form that qualifies so you're just not getting randoms booking a call with you, because this is your time, especially if it's not going to be a paid call. You want to make sure that you're investing your time into things that have higher chances of generating revenue for you. So that is a big thing. You can use something like Typeform, or even Calendly has the option for them to put responses in. A free version of that, Google Forms, you can just create a Google form that redirects them to a Calendly link. You get a notification when someone submits the Google form and manually send them a Calendly link. You can find ways to go about it that are cheap or free. For anyone that you cold emailed and that responded to you, come to the call with packages laid out for them. Create a Google Doc or a Canva document that describe the problem they're facing, how you can help them, and packages to solve it. Take frame in that call, meaning go on the call with your ideas, say, hey, I'm just going to share with you why I reached out to you, how I think can help you, and how we can work together. This will make you stand out and help the call have direction rather than just being a coffee chat that gets you nowhere. Because again, it's your time and their time too. And then lastly, for warm clients that you reached out to on a platform that you know they're looking for your services, but you should always have a package or bare minimum number in mind, like I've mentioned in the past. But sometimes these clients just want to get things done fast. They're not really interested in having a long meeting or you preparing a sales pitch or something like that. They just want to get started. They may just be like, do a couple messages here and there. If they want a meeting, come to the meeting with an idea. Maybe you can create something, but be flexible and see how the vibes are. Adjust to them, I would say, but just have your numbers in mind at a baseline. Never get on a call without your numbers in your mind. And I would say roughly you want to keep any calls that you're doing up to 45 minutes, even if they're the one who has the frame. You can get sucked into spending hours on a call that doesn't lead anywhere, where you're just giving value to somebody and then they don't end up working with you, which is okay. It could turn into something eventually, but I found that I was wasting a lot of times because I didn't take charge. I would just be kind of sitting on these calls for so long when they didn't need to be that long. And it took a lot of energy and time away where I could just be making content or doing client work that would make me more money. So something to think about there. Just a reminder to think of freelancing as a business. Be confident, be clear, own your skill set and your capabilities. And remember that discount is not what's going to get you a sale. It's making sure that the client understands the value that you're bringing to the table. So you get on a call, you have some email back and forth, and you get the client. Now what? Let's talk about workflow. This is where you're going to make or break yourself as a freelancer. I actually think the easier part is getting a client. I'm of the belief that once you get in your foot in the door, it's fairly easy to stay in the industry and consistently win clients and get better results. But maybe that's because I've really worked on my operations. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. If you haven't watched any of my videos before, this is your first time meeting me, I'm a very type A person. My personality type is INTJA. So I'm balanced in that I'm equally emotional and logical. And although I think these labels and personality types and things are fun, I don't think they're a way to live your life. But for me, it's really relevant. And I bring this up to say that if you're a type B person, you may have to do some extra work to build up this side of things. I see a lot of creatives, for example, have amazing work and can charge a lot for their work, but they struggle to retain and keep client relationships because they let their type B fluid, flighty, flowy personality get in the way. You don't have to be rigid as hell, but you do have to set some parameters in place. If you have a good structure and routine around clients and workflow, you can optimize your time, work in an efficient amount of time and make more for that, which means more clientele or more time to do the things that you want to do. Also, you can keep relationships with clients, which gives you more relationships in the future because of referrals and that kind of thing. And also just longevity in general. So keeping clients for a longer period of time. If you do good work and you're good to work with, and you're tied to a client's revenue, they see you as an investment, the only reason they won't work with you is if the business is crumbling down. I mean, obviously there are other things that could happen, but at a baseline, it's more difficult for them to go out and find another freelancer to replace you. Much more time and monetary investment in that way. Let's go through how you're going to do all of this and the things that I think are most important. Number one, you want to get a contract in place. So on the call, you get clear with your deliverables and timelines. If it's a one-off project, make sure you ask them if they have a specific end date they're looking for. If you don't verbally acknowledge payment terms or do that in an email, make sure you do it in the contract and make it very clear, put it in bold, 50% payment up front, but also put it in an email where you send the contract and say, hey, here's a contract. When signed, you can send the payment via XYZ. We'll talk about those little nitty-gritty stuff soon, but always send a contract before starting work. Baseline, you can just use ChatGPT. Thank God for AI. Before, when I started, as I said, I didn't have ChatGPT. I went on Google and typed in freelancer contract, took the most basic one, someone from some free website, and downloaded it. Over time, I started to realize what clauses made most sense. And again, it's based on the way that I set up my business and the types of clients I was working on, and then I would optimize it for that. So I'm going to share some of those details. But I think overall, from having helped many freelancers as well, there's some things that it doesn't matter what industry you're in is important. So payment terms, when and how you get paid. I personally do not like working without getting paid upfront. So if it's a retainer model, they pay me at the beginning of the month. I expect payment upfront. And if for some reason don't want to do that, maybe they're a little weary or whatever, we'll do 50%. And then the other 50% consistent payment upfront. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want from your clients. I remember when I was in a little pickle, I had only one client, which I never recommend only working with one client. I'll talk about that in a bit. Always have a roster of 3 at bare minimum, and always be posting content, getting yourself out there so you can have a roster of people to reach out to or work with you in the case that you need. But I didn't do that. Only had one client, finally got a new client, and I really needed to get paid. Your girl had no money. Never wanted to be in that situation again. Thankfully, never been again. These are moments that planted things in my head that has allowed me to share all of this knowledge with you today. So I remember just to the client and say, hey, I know I just started working with you, but can you pay me now, please? Basically, in a nice professional way. He was like, yeah, no problem. The payment changed my brain chemistry because I realized I could just ask for what I want. And then moving forward, I started to be more vocal and upfront with how I wanted to work with clients. When I was doing one-off projects, the first couple of times I did it, I got paid at the end, and it took months. I was following up with this girl. It was horrible. So I changed my strategy to get 50% upfront, 50% all revisions were completed. That worked well. Now at my level and the way that I work, normally I'm not doing a one-off project. If I was, I would get all payment upfront. Depending on what it is, unless it's a massive payment, I could understand and I'll do 50%. If not, regardless, I will do retainer work and get paid at the end of the month if it's a reputable agency or referral that I know, but a contract is definitely in place. There's definitely clear payment terms on the exact date they need to pay me. Revision limits, if you're doing one-off projects or even just deliverable-based work, you may have clients that are just sending you a bunch of different revisions to the point where it doesn't even make sense anymore. It's not really adding to or benefiting either of you guys, meaning the work is not of better quality and you're just spending more time doing things that are not generating revenue or whatever outcome they're looking for. So when I was doing one-off projects, especially, I would make sure it was very clear that I did 2 revisions. That was my base. I never put anything more than that. And it keeps the client feedback actually really clear as well, because they're not getting, I have 2 feedback sessions. I can only do 2 revisions. So therefore I'm going to be very clear if I don't like something to explain what I like or don't like about it. So she can revise it accordingly and we can get this done in 2 rounds. Timeline. So again, if it's a one-off project, when things need to be finished by, when they need to respond to you by. So for example, having a clause along the lines of client will respond in a reasonable time period within 5 to 7 days or 3 to 4 working days when asked a question or when given information to fill out, that kind of thing I think is really valuable. And again, it's not like it's like, if they don't respond, you're going to be like, hey, per our contract. That happens if it's like been, time. Then you can start to like bring that up, but it's good to have that as a base. Next is a cancellation policy. So even especially now as someone on retainer, I make sure that the client has to give me at least 2 weeks written notice. If they want to cancel, they have to pay me for that month, basically. So that would technically be like in the middle of a month, but they would have to pay me for that month or 30 days written notice to cancel on both sides. I think that's pretty reasonable. Portfolio rights is a big one. I recommend making sure that any clauses you put in their contract or anything you sign still allows you to use their work in your portfolio. If they want you to not be able to publicly say their name or whatever, like specific details, that's okay. But at a bare minimum, you should be able to take work that you did and put it in a portfolio or reference it on your website. This is extremely important because this is what's going to help you get clients. Also make sure sometimes clients or agencies may say that you can't work with competing brands for a certain amount of times after working with them. Or if you're working with an agency, you can't poach their clients. I think that's completely fine, but get clear. If you're not sure about the wording, they sent you an NDA or a contract, paste it into ChatGPT, ask if there's anything you should be worried about and ask them to clarify something and vice versa. Make sure if you're creating something like that, you put very clear language. Most important, probably the most important thing, I would say if you forget all of this, make sure that there's a space for the client to fill out their name, address, and phone number. If you don't have their phone number, it's a little bit more difficult to get payment. Smalls Claims Court or something can help you do that much faster if you have their number versus if you don't. So that's something that I learned along the way from that was valuable. I've never had to use it. Again, this is kind of it's all the scary things that you think about that you're like, oh, I don't want to do it. But it's usually you have 1 or 2 bad clients and then you get really good at spotting the red flags, like I mentioned before. So I think those are just the baseline things that you should think of. Remember, get that contract going. It's not odd if they send you a contract or if they send you an NDA, they're just trying to back themselves up. Just put it through an AI tool to double check if there's anything you should be worried about. I've shared the things that I check, and that's pretty much it. You can literally just download one from the internet or any of the AI tools, add your own little twist. Jotforms is completely free to use in this manner. So you would download the document as a PDF, and then you could create a signable document on Jotform and just add the tabs so they can effortlessly just click it, sign it, and put all the information in, and then it will automatically email them the link. So it becomes very easy because signing contracts on the internet can get very stressful if somebody doesn't know how to sign a PDF, So this Jotforms make it really easy. I've been using it for for years. I use it for literally everything. It's the best. Love it. So it will be linked on the Notion board. And it also feels really organized, and you can add your logo on the top of the Google Doc and the PDF to make it look a little bit more professional, and it adds trust. My rule, no contract, no work. I do not get started on any work in any capacity without a contract. Alrighty, so next is communications with your clients. When you're working with them, when and where and how do you work with? This will differ client to client. I found that when I was doing one-off projects, it was usually with smaller brands that were barely touching 10 a month or maybe something like that. They often like to use my setup. I wasn't really integrated into the business, especially when I was doing a one-off project. So in that case, I actually started using Honeybook. I haven't used it in 2 years because it was the first thing I used, and then I stopped using it once I kind of leveled up and changed industries. But Honeybook was great to start. I think they had an amazing deal at the time where I got 3 months for $1, and then the payment was crazy after that, but it was really good. It basically sets up a portal for everything you would need. I would say the cons were that it was just an extra thing that clients would have to get used to and learn how to use, which is not necessarily ideal. But from the freelancer side, it kept things really organized. Once you had a call and the client agreed, put the contract in the portal, send them the email, any links, information, questions, things you wanted from them, that would be in the portal. And you could also set up email automations. So let's say after a call, they said yes, you could automatically click a button that sends them a contract. And then after they sign a contract, automatically do this. And that's what I used to start. However, once I started to scale and also work on retainer, I built out my own client portals. I actually created a client portal in She Freelances where they can duplicate it and basically host their clients. So with Notion, just like you guys are using the Notion board, you have a public site, add clients to a specific page, and that page will be their portal, and there'll be different sections in each thing. So for example, there's a client that I do ad hoc copywriting for throughout the month. They need it consistently. So we have a table tracker sort of thing. Whenever they need copy, they'll go into their portal, they'll tag me, the details, I'll do it, and then I'll move the little tab to completed, in progress, and it keeps track of everything. So that's really good. Operations not only help you work faster and more efficiently, it keeps client communication clear. So in the portal I've created for the She Freelancer students, there's a calendar section and a timeline. You can create a timeline so the expectations are set. They know when you're planning to have things done. You can tag them in certain dates, tag them when you want them to have certain things done. Again, this is more curated for a one-off project. I find that in my retainer work and when I was working with bigger clients, they would have their own systems, and I'm a freelancer coming in and kind of like an in-house team member essentially. And in that case, they usually had a system set up. They would have Slack and a Notion portal themselves, or they would use Monday.com or Trello or something like that. So I would just learn how to use it. Oftentimes they would have a video where they would show how to use it, and then I would just go into their work process. So again, be open when it comes to communication for retainer clients. I try and respond between 24 to 48 hours, never more than 48 hours, but I don't feel like you need to respond every second as soon as they message you. Just be reasonable in your responses. Some things that I've included in the portal that I created for myself and share with my students are project overview and timeline, a deliverable list, a payment schedule, a link to where they can pay you. So for example, some clients pay me through PayPal, some clients pay me through Rise, depends on what works best for them. So I'll link both. Facts and maybe boundaries. You can expect to hear from me. If it's a one-off project, you can expect to hear from me at this time on Monday to Friday, 1 to 4 p.m. Saturdays, I'll respond to you. If you message me on the weekend, you can expect a response by 11 a.m. Monday, something like that. You can be very detailed and just curate the kind of relationship and boundaries that you want. And then, for example, if we're having calls or there's any assets I want them to have or that they need, I would have that all linked there. So resources, booking call links. If I'm working with a client, usually the bigger clients have their own setup. So I just go into it and learn it. It's nuanced on that, but I'm sure you have a good kind of image now that I've described it. So what you want to do early on is think of systems. So how do you approach the work? When I was doing the one-off copywriting projects, I would have a system. Okay, they need to fill out the onboarding questionnaire that gives me all the details they need. Once I do that, then I do research. I would create a evergreen document that I filled out research in, and then I would create a document where I do a draft, and then I would create a document where I put the final files. I created all of that one time, and then every time I needed it, I would duplicate it. And I had folders and systems for this. Whatever skill you're offering, you need to do the same thing. Now, when I'm doing paid ads, I have a similar system, okay? I'm going to spend X amount of time doing research. This is where I link everything when I do my research. And then I'm going to spend X amount of time writing ad scripts or using AI. And this is how I do this. And I just create these systems. I have tabs on my laptop for each of these tasks. Just 3 seconds of your time over months and months can save you a lot of time. So create little folders. Research folder, I have that where I have my research tools tagged, or the drive that I use to do that. Insanely detailed about how you set up these systems, because in the long run, it's really, really going to help you. And always when you have an idea or you need an update, one of the evergreen, so things that you're going to use all the time, files or documents, do that immediately or write a note to do it so you do it. So if I figured, oh, okay, I don't like the way this client answered this question, I don't want that to happen again, I'll do that right away, update it, so that moving forward, the next time I get a client, I'm not worried about, oh, I need to change this and do this before I can do that. It's just done and it's just there consistently updated. Recap emails, thank you emails, save all of the templates that you've used in the past, subject lines, all the things, and just resend those and have those ready. So all of your energy can then be focused on doing the work rather than these little small tasks. It makes such a difference. I believe I mentioned in the contract section about setting timelines and communication boundaries. If I didn't, definitely recommend doing that. If it's a one-off project, I have it in my standard contract now. I have a lot of things going on. I do a lot of work. Sometimes I work on the weekend. Sometimes I work really late at night or in the morning. All my clients are all over the world. So I respond within the 24 to 48 hour mark, but I don't have hard deadlines. Like, do not text me. Do not send me a Slack message on Saturday. Sometimes I be sending Slack messages on Saturday, but you can see how it's curated based on how I like and want to run my business. In the past, based on the different work I was doing, preferred for clients not to message me at a certain time. So that would be more clear and obvious. The Honeybook portal, contract, whatever. So depends on what you want. I just wanted to point that out. Okay, this may be the most important thing I say in this video. Once you get a client, like if you do this, you're going to have a good freelancing life. And that is managing your time properly. The cheat code for this as a freelancer is try and work under the assumption that you don't have a 40-hour work week. This absolutely changed the game for myself. If you give yourself a long time to do something, you're going to take a long time to do it. So if you tell yourself you have a 20-hour work week, you're going to work in the 20 hours and get things done efficiently within that time period. And of course, as a beginner, you may be slower, but you'll get better and better. But I think starting off with that baseline mentality is so powerful, because oftentimes freelancers will be, oh, I'm going to over deliver and do this and do that. They think over delivering means spending 20 hours on something they should spend 2 hours on, and then they're burnt out. And they also undercharge. So they're like, I hate freelancing. You need to take ownership and curate the life you want. And that means thinking about how long it should take you to do a project. Sometimes, yeah, you may invest more time and it's very strategic in why and how you do that. But at a baseline throughout your whole career, you want to think about things in this way that tasks expand based on the amount of time you allocate for yourself to finish the task. If you give yourself a week, it will take a week. If you give yourself 3 days, it will take 3 days. Very simple. So I set mini deadlines for every deliverable, even in the small things. Because now a lot of my work is consulting based and I'm doing a lot of Slack responding and sending looms, helping put out fires throughout the week. I found that I would be spending way too much time doing this work when it didn't have to take me that time. So I'll allocate now, set a timer for, okay, it's client messages time. Actually, after I filmed this video today, on my to-do list is responding to all my client Slack messages. I give myself maximum an hour to do this for all of my clients. That's it. Before it would take me way longer. I'm so embarrassed to say. And that has allowed me to be more and strategic about how I go about it. So now I have a whole system. A lot of the times I'm responding with Loom videos. So I will write out the Slack message in Slack and then record the Loom with the Slack message, then paste it. I just have this whole routine now, which I didn't have before when I was just spending freaking 2 hours responding to one message that didn't require that at all, which is just wasting my time and prolonging my client getting their response. I will add that it's good to go above and beyond in the beginning, set a good first impression. That doesn't mean working more, but it means putting your best foot forward. So your first project or set of deliverables that you do for your client, put in effort, make it really good, make them happy that they invested in you. Something I found that will help you stand out is just sending weekly updates. If you're, let's say, working on retainer and you're in a Slack channel or something like that. So I personally do this. My clients don't ask me to do this. It's not part of my deliverables, but every single week on a Friday evening or something like that, I will just send what I did this week, what I'm working on, and what I need from them for the following week, something like that. Very, very simple. It may be changed depending on the type of deliverable setup I have with the client, but they love that. And it reminds them subconsciously about the value that I'm bringing, shows that I'm up to speed, that I'm thinking about their business and the work that I'm doing for them. So yeah, I think that's something I implemented later on in my career that has been really valuable. And always congratulating my clients on major milestones where possible. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could just be a quick message, quick conversation in a personal DM or email. If you have a one-off client or project, then you also want to think of how you offboard a client. So send them their final deliverables in a way you can't disrupt. So let's say you're writing copy or you have a video and you put that information in a client portal. You may archive or delete that client portal eventually. So make sure to send them the actual files, the downloaded PDFs that are not in a Google Drive that you could eventually delete. Make sure it's separate. So it's the raw information that they can download and have with or without you. That's important. You can think about how I would have learned that the hard way. Send them a thank you note. And then you can also do in Honeybook, I would send a thank you note. And then 2 days later, there'd be a follow-up where the review. And for the review, I would give them 10 or 15% off their next time working with me if they wanted to in the future, which clients did actually take me up on. And it's crazy thinking back because I was such a newbie and honestly questionable copywriter, but they loved what I did. Like comparing myself now to then is not what I should be doing, but it's just interesting to think about how I just kind of created all of these things out of thin air just by learning and seeing how the process went, because I realized, okay, I need reviews. How can I make sure they do it? I tried to get a review this time. They didn't do it. Let me incentivize them to do it. You know, you just kind of learn as you go. I found that a lot of people would leave the most boring, annoying testimonials. And as a copywriter, I knew the importance of getting the right things written. So I would ask them questions in a certain way that I could build the full testimonial out of. And then I also had like a rating on Honeybook. I think they could rate their experience for like, how is your onboarding experience? How is your communication? How is this? How is that? And then they would leave the feedback, which was also really good. So I could think of, okay, I need to work on this next time or that, or maybe they just thought I was perfect. And then you could automate, for example, or I maybe follow up every 2 months. This is again, when I was just doing the one-off projects, I got out of that realm pretty quickly. But when I would do a follow-up in 3 months and say, hey, just, seeing how you are, the website go live, this, that, and the third, if you needed any work, just wanting to let you know, blah, blah, blah. And that did help me just build relationships, even if I didn't get a specific project out of that. Professionalism isn't about being perfect and never missing a beat. You will miss a beat here and there. Some of the AI tools won't work. The automation will fail. It'll happen. But you look 10 times more professional when you have this stuff set up. And also operations wise, you get more done in a more efficient manner when you're sort of thinking in systems in this way. You want to keep all of your brain capacity for the work that you're doing because that's what gets you paid. And then have everything else set up in systems. So even sending invoices as an example, which I'll actually talk about in a bit. I'm going to make that a bonus section too, because I didn't really plan to go into the depths about that, but here we are. Might as well just keep going. But even that, it's like, I have a very clear system on how I send invoices. It takes me like 10 minutes to do it now. Bookkeeping, find a good accountant, like all the things so that you can put all of your time and effort into the work that is actually getting you paid. This is how you keep trust. It builds your reputation. It makes them think, yeah, not only is she good, but I know you're going to have a good experience working with her. So I'm going to refer you, which I get a lot of referrals and has been very powerful for my business. Okay, let's quickly talk payments and invoices. So as I've mentioned, you can get paid any way you want as long as the client has the capabilities of paying you in that way. I personally have only used PayPal and Wise to collect payments. My personal favorite is Wise because you can create bank accounts in different currencies and then transfer it to, let's say, your other currency's bank account. As someone who's basically, I wouldn't say I'm a digital nomad, but I work with clients all over the world and I don't live in the country that I have my business incorporated in. So there's a lot of different currencies and things going on. So Wise has been really helpful. And I've had thousands of dollars sitting in my Wise account for years and have never had an issue. I really trust them. PayPal fees are pretty crazy. I've run into issues with PayPal before where my client may send payment via friends and family as an accident or to avoid fees, either or, not necessarily out of malicious intent. And then my money gets frozen and it's a whole entire thing. So just be careful in that sense. But basically the setup for me is QuickBooks. I use QuickBooks for my bookkeeping. So I'll create the invoice on QuickBooks, be very specific on the work that I'm doing. If it's a retainer, I'll make sure I'll put the month and the name of the package and then the pricing. If you need to include taxes and that kind of thing, you just do your own research there. I personally spent maybe $70 on a call with an accountant to kind of get the nitty-gritty details that I need to think about when sending invoices and working with clients and whatnot. And then I just use that information to build out my workflow for this. Download the invoice, send it to them with the PayPal or Wise link. And that's it. Very, very simple. And then because I do the invoices in QuickBooks, they're already there. So when it's time to do taxes, they're all there and accounted for. So yeah, pretty simple. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about longevity. How to make freelancing last transparently. If you couldn't tell already, I've been filming this literally in one go. I think it's the longest time I've sat down and yapped to the camera, and the sun is about to set. So I'm trying to wrap this up. Leave the sun emoji if you're still here listening in the comments. But as I mentioned in the very beginning of the video, I scaled my freelance business to 6 figures in 18 months. took action, a lot of trial and error, etc. I haven't been doing it for a decade. So when it comes to longevity, I'm sure there's going to be things I learn along the way. I'm definitely not a veteran, and there are people out there who were doing it even before social media. This is my advice based on someone who's been freelancing for 4 years now. I pay my bills, my rent, my taxes, and I've never worked a corporate job or had a side job while freelancing, except for the very, very early stages. Completely run my life with freelancing. All my other income streams are extras or are new to my income. When I say that I've built a multi-six-figure freelance business, it is my freelance income, not anything else. So just want to make that clear and be transparent when I talk about longevity. I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot more in the next 5 years of my career. So here are the things that I have learned. Number one, I think the freelancers that last aren't the most talented. They're just the most consistent and the ones who stay curious and focus on upskilling and building relationships with their clients. So they keep applying for gigs, sending outreach, or posting content even when they're happy with their clientele because they know the value in that and they know that things can change. As I mentioned, I think that having one client can be detrimental. The benefit of freelancing is that you can diversify your income in many ways. You can have freelance roster of clients that you have on retainer. You could have digital products that you sell to people who don't want to work with you on retainer. You could do side projects in YouTube like this, for example. That's the benefit. You should be making use of that. And one client with no benefits might as well just stay at a job. So it's good to have 1 to 3 clients at one time, but then also building up what I call an insurance plan of having a wait list of people who sign up to get your newsletter where you talk about the thing you do, or download your free digital PDF where you talk about a specific thing that you offer, or a video. As I mentioned, I've had clients for my creative strategy course who book a consulting call with me, turn into retainer clients. And that video just stays on YouTube. So if someone types in creative, it will likely come up. And if they get value from it, that could turn into something. That's in the long run. I used to, before my channel was the way it is now, where I talk about ambition, discipline, freelancing, money, talked about marketing. A lot of those videos are archived now, but if you scroll, you'll find some of those. And that was kind of how I was thinking of setting myself up. So you want to kind of think of freelancing as a pipeline: outreach, delivery, nurture, and always have leads at each stage of that pipeline. Number 2 is build your ecosystem. So I slightly mentioned this already, but smart freelancers build something outside of one way of working with a client. Once you get 1, 2, 3 retainer clients, you can say, there's some clients that I get on calls with just not the good fit. They can't afford me. Maybe I can make a little mini course for them that's quarter of the price of my retainer. You can still make money from them. Or maybe you want to freelance because you want more time to travel and post travel content. For me, from ripe age of 13, I've been posting motivational blogs and stuff like that on YouTube. And the way that I do now has always been something that's there. I wouldn't say it was like my dream, but I always wanted to do it. Freelancing gave me the ability and the money to afford like an editor and just all these other things to do it. So I did it. And now that is another income stream. Nothing I planned. I didn't plan to do this. It just happened. I would post about my journey and then I would have girls reach out to me. And like She Freelances is now also a benefit for me because I oftentimes have clients asking me for referrals. I have a directory for anybody that joins the program. I send the directory to any clients that are looking for people in a specific skill set or niche. So it all has come full circle and it's crazy what you can do, but you have to split your time up as a freelancer to allow these things to build and to put them into fruition. So I used to spend a lot of time doing client work and then put my work at the back. First 2 hours of my day are fully committed to my thing, whether it's the passion project, the YouTube, whatever it was at the time. And then the rest of my day is focused on client work. So that way, the thing I want to do, I'm moving it along. Because if you don't do that, sometimes you'll just get lost in the sauce and just stay doing client work and never build anything for yourself or other income streams for yourself in the capacity of freelancing. And there's so many ways that you can think about freelancing. I see freelancers now who have communities. So imagine instead of having different portals for their clients and interacting with their clients in a different way, they have their clients in a community. In a community, they have a course and then they have a done with you service. So the client is watching the course or has access to the course, but then you're also doing hands-on work with the client. And then the client also gets access to other people in their industry. So it creates a kind of relationship around you, which is crazy. There's just so many ways you can go about it that last the longest and stay secure, build their ecosystem in creative ways based on new knowledge that they're learning. And again, these side projects compound over time. They build your authority, credibility, and income stability. Your client work will fund the experiments, and the experiments create long-term freedom. Next, we have editing. Danae here for this one. The freelancers that last make their clients' life easy. They don't go to clients with problems or make any aspect of working with them difficult. What do I mean by this? I think these little things I'm about to share played a way bigger role in clients continuing to work with me and freelancers that I know are being successful long-term than you might imagine. Being easy to work with means if there is a problem, you're supposed to use a specific tool and the tool's not working. You don't go to the client and say, hey, things not working. You try and troubleshoot. That doesn't work. You try and troubleshoot again. It doesn't work. You try and troubleshoot again. 3 times. You're like, okay, hey, this is not working. I've done these couple things. This is what I plan to do next. Let me know if da-da-da-da-da. That way it shows that you're proactive, you're thinking. And if you keep going to your clients with problems, you become annoying, and it just constantly reminds them in their head that you equals problem. And you do not equal problem solving, right? So you always want to create this frame of how you work with your clients as you solving problems, making things easier for them. So that's an example. Never go with a straight up problem. Show that you've tried. Most of the times, if you try to solve the problem, you'll find a solution yourself and then you don't have to message them. If you've tried multiple times and it's not working, then you do it. A small example is like, sometimes I will need to update something in a client's Notion that they own and I won't have access to it for some reason. I'm not going to not do the thing because I don't have access to the Notion. I'll just send them a message and say, hey, here's the thing. I'm pasting it here for you, or in this Google Doc. I don't have access to Notion. Can you please access? I'll paste it in there when I have access, but here's the thing. Simple, small things like that really make you stand out. So on that point, being reliable, I have never in my freelance career missed a deadline. If I were getting close to missing a deadline, which is like 2 to 3 days, I would tell them in that time frame in advance. I've literally never missed a deadline. I am reliable F. This is why clients stay working with me forever and ever and ever. A lot of times too, if they need an emergency task done, like something done in a quick amount of time, I will do it because I know that that will play such a big role in my reputation and how they perceive me in their mind. Be reliable. Again, back to my point from the beginning where it's like freelancers just think, oh, I have this skill, pay me for this skill. And they're just begging people to pay them for this skill, rather than thinking, how can I be of value and solve problems and make this person's life easier? This is how you get to be the top 1% type of freelancer. So be reliable, meet deadlines. If you're not going to meet a deadline, tell them in advance, figure it out fast. And on that point, be proactive. So this was, I would say, is one of the main things. I think all of the other things I mentioned were things that came intuitively to me, but something that I learned over time, just out of complete annoyance, is that you need to be proactive with your clients. And that's actually going to make you stand out and is what's going to get you other opportunities. People are like, how did she get this opportunity? How did she get that opportunity? Because I'm proactive. So before, I would realize that I would have an idea for something not even in my realm of work, like as a freelancer. It would be completely different from what I offer, but I would have an idea, or I would notice something on the website that maybe wasn't working as well, or this or that. And I just wouldn't say anything because I didn't want to overstep weird behavior. And then I would see someone else do it and then get so much praise for that. And I'm like, I literally saw this and I literally had a better idea or something like that. So now I'm always, any ideas, if I see an Instagram post or a tweet or an article or a podcast, anything in relation to something that I think my client would like or would benefit them or the business in any way, I send it over. And that, again, it creates this frame of she's reliable, she's proactive, she cares about the business, she's interested in what we're doing, she's thinking about, like, it just does so much for you in the long run. Be proactive, and especially obviously do this in your realm of work, in your field. So if they are telling you to do a specific thing, do things in a specific way, and you realize, hey, this is kind of changing in this industry now, I think we should change to this. Don't be like, hey, this is old and this is wrong and I don't want to do this anymore. You should just be like, hey, I noticed this trend going on, and I think on top of doing this, I think we should try and pivot in this direction to test this out so we are ahead of the change. And then just some extra little tidbits here. When you're sending a message and you're referencing something, or you're sharing work that you did, or a link or an email or something, link it. Hey, client, just finished this. Here's a link. I reference this and this and this. Like, if you're going to reference something, don't make them have to go and type in the Notion. Just link the Notion board. It just makes their life easier. It keeps things clean and organized. And again, it just associates you with ease and effortlessness, which in the long run is compounding in their head and making them be like, yes, love this person. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So yes, never be the problem. Next, I think something really valuable that a lot of freelancers overlook, especially those who don't necessarily like content, is SEO and AEO. So SEO, search engine optimization, and then answer engine optimization. So AEO would be for these AI tools that we have now. You know how someone might say, what's the best restaurant in my city? Someone may say, what's the best copywriter for this specific niche? If you optimize your website to be search engine optimized and be answer engine optimized, you'll be getting more inbounds without having to post content. So writing blogs about the specific topic, provide to your clients and or just making sure your website in and of itself makes it clear who you are, what you do. So if someone searches that up, then they come across you. So eventually, after you get your first few clients, invest in a website. That's what I invested in a website. I'll share my current website, which I don't actively use now. Nobody submits forms because I don't promote it anywhere, but that's what I used in the later stages of my journey after I got clients and got money, and I invested in a brand designer, and I love it. It's beautiful. I definitely need a new one now because I'm in a whole different era and I offer whole different things, but it was very powerful for me and is optimized so that on the website, you can have who you help, why you help them, some case studies, some portfolio work, pictures of you, that kind of thing. Next, freelancers that seem to last, stay curious. I've mentioned this a billion times, but stay curious. What's going on in the industry? What can I learn? AI agents, what's that? What are these new tools? What are these things that people are using? What are clients actually looking for these days? Can I learn this? Is there a course for this? That's what's going to keep you getting paid consistently over time. Adjacent to that is investing in yourself and your systems. Don't be afraid to spend money on courses to upskill, a new laptop to give you a better workflow, a bigger screen, a monitor, a comfier chair so you don't dread doing work as much. Those things matter. Don't be afraid to invest in yourself. This is your livelihood, your business. No one's going to do it for you. And I also think that longevity, I've learned this the hard way, doesn't come from working harder. It comes from being efficient. You'll get burned out if you just grind all the time. You do need the grinding phase. Do that in the beginning, get it over with, but learn to find balance. And balance might mean some seasons you're doing more client work and other seasons you're relaxing. Your pipeline is a little bit smaller, but that's good because you're resting. You need that. Your mental health is going to be the number one driver of whether you can continue doing work consistently, and staying up to date with your client work and getting things over on time. It's really, really important. Don't devalue your mental health. You are the product essentially. So make sure that you're good. Keep your health front and center. And remember, you built a freelance business to have the freedom and autonomy. Sometimes I would not take a day off and it's like, babe, why are you doing this anyways? If you feel like you can't sleep in until 9 a.m. I don't prefer doing that. I am a morning person, but if I do, it's fine. This is the life that I built for myself. And this is something that I just learned. I think I tied my identity way too tightly to productivity in the past. So detracting from that has been really valuable for me. But I won't judge your decision to disregard everything I'm saying and burn yourself out one time to learn the lesson, because I think that a lot of people do that. And it's just something you won't really get until you get it. When it comes to taking holidays versus traveling, as a freelancer, I travel as I work. So I will go to different countries, work from different countries, go to events. While I'm there, I am likely waking up in the morning, spending 1 to 2 hours doing client work, sending messages, doing deliverables, etc., closing my laptop, going out and having fun, and having that freedom to be able to go anywhere and work from anywhere. A holiday is completely different. I've only done one time in my freelance career, and it was very early on. That is where I wouldn't do any work at all and not open my laptop. But the thing is, I could take more holidays and tell my clients, hey, for this month or for this time period, I'm not going to do XYZ, but it's never been something that I wanted to do. And I'm in a season of my life as a young 20-something that I just want to grind it out so that when I'm in my 30s, my mid-30s, my life is completely different. That's kind of the game that I'm playing. But people always ask how I travel. So oftentimes what I'll do is if I have deliverables where I'd send them like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I send a set amount, like let's say it's an ad script and I send ad scripts every day. If that was the case, I would get them done ahead of time. And then while I'm traveling, the only thing I'm doing is answering client messages that take like an hour. I'm really only working an hour a day. If I have a client call, I may switch the call over to a day when I'm not doing something highly intensive, or just not have the client call while I'm traveling. I told them if there was a big emergency or something was missing or whatever, they could text me. Everything was all fine. It's never that serious. Last, but certainly not least, the freelancers that last, I go to events. I tell people about what I do. I take coffee chats from LinkedIn, not all the time, but where it makes sense for me, because I can't speak in with everyone, but I'm strategic about that. And that has been really helpful. One connection can change the trajectory of your life or your career. I have connections that have gotten me opportunities that are absolutely insane just because I responded to a DM on Instagram. The value of posting content, but also the value of going out in person and meeting people. You never know where it can lead you. Not that it needs to be transactional, but that is important. And you should see that as part of your pipeline as well. So go to events, collaborate with other freelancers, big up other freelancers. Don't think that if someone else gets an opportunity that you can't get an opportunity. Have a mindset that there's abundance in the world and in life. One strong connection in person from something like this can replace months of cold outreach or gigs on Upwork. So don't take it lightly. In-person connections have changed my life. So yeah, Freelancing long term is about just having a good rhythm. I have a lot of practical motivational videos on how I live my life, systems I have so I can optimize my time and have a good mindset. And I think that is paired with it. So definitely binge those. But overall, specifically when it comes to freelancing, if you stay curious, stay consistent and connected, it becomes a way to make money predictably. In my opinion, so much more exciting and fun in corporate job, and becomes a vehicle for freedom to build your life by design. I think we've been caged in so many different ways in our lives, like different ways that you have to do things and all these rules and lies and scripts. So being able to take your autonomy back and just live life in a way that seems very different from the average person's life is exciting. And it requires a lot of work, as you've seen here. It requires a lot of effort and intentional work, but when you're there, it is worth it. It's worth it. So yeah, that's it. Honestly, although this was so long and I had to take a break and eat and drink and all the things in between, I think I'm happy with what I've shared. If this video gave you any value, again, like, subscribe. If you take action and get a client, please comment it. I want to know. I respond to almost all my comments on YouTube, so I will read it and I will respond to you. I'm rooting for you. And if you want to join She Freelances, where you'll get even more in-depth information and access to me and all the other girlies, then that will be in the description as well. Wishing you the absolute best in your endeavors, and we'll talk soon.